co-founder of Maricure, has over 20 years in IT and web security. Put your hands together as we welcome Shivanand Sharma. Sir, it's all yours.
Thank you so much for a lovely introduction. And thank you so much for having the time and energy to be present here on a late Sunday afternoon, almost evening. How do we connect it? Okay, we can exploit a little bit of that time, if time allows. So before I delve into cleaning a WordPress website, let me share a beautiful small story about WordPress success. One of my very dear friends during COVID, since it was all lockdown during COVID, he took out the time to learn WordPress, and he found it very extremely easy to, get started with WordPress, tinker around, get hosting and everything, and he set up his own website. And then playing around with this website, he used Elementor and some other drag and drop tools to create his own website. And he's running an excellent online course today. He's an artist, but he was able to put it all together, learn by himself, and put it all together into a beautiful WordPress website. And trust me, he's here in this room with us. That's Mr. Ashwinji. He plays with A.R. Rahman sir. So a small round of applause for him. So this would certainly send shivers down my spine as a developer, that someone is able to, so easily pick up WordPress. And if they can design their website, what am I here for? So I have to up my game. I have to get into security. And so should you. So this is the agenda. We'll just talk about the importance of web security for a bit. How to identify a compromised website. Preparation before a cleanup. Blueprint for malware cleanup. Navigating the pitfalls. How to prevent these kind of incidents from happening again, and then a final slide with Q&A. So can anyone tell me on an average how much a customer spends on getting his website cleaned up if it gets infected? Anyone? Vague guess? Sorry? 10,000? So in the marketplace, if you go, depending on from where you get your resource to clean up the website, it may cost you anywhere from $50 to upwards of $1,000. This is in dollars. And depending on the skill set of the person who's cleaning it, it may be a one-off task, or it may end up getting infected again, and when you might have to look for someone who's had a better skill set, something of that sort. So this is definitely a skill which you need to add to your resume or your business portfolio, so that you can actually impress upon your customer how sensitized or how conscious you actually are about this landscape of the WordPress security. So one of my customers called me up and said, my header is broken, my footer is broken, looks like my website is hacked. Do you think it could happen? Is it possible that it was hacked? There is no real way to tell, because it could be a broken cache that has not been updated or has failed to update. It could be that the developer fell asleep while coding the website and resulted in an unclosed div tag or header or footer, something of that sort. Totally possible. And it could be, that the customer tried to do himself from something from the back end, and they ended up, customizing a little bit more than was intended. So they say, okay, I was just trying to add this bit of script which I found on Google Analytics, and I just added it to the header, and this is what happened. And I think I got a virus. So the primary way to know how your website gets hacked is, primarily you'll never know if your website gets hacked. It is mostly going to be someone else who will tell you your website has been hacked. Some customer will come and say, I went to your website and it redirected me to something.com, which I never wanted to see. Or maybe you come back and say, okay, last week I was getting 1000 hits per day, and today I just got 2 hits per day. What's up? Right? Or someone says, I searched for your name on Google and all I could see was Chinese characters and Japanese characters. Happens very frequently. So any one of these symptoms is a definitive indicator that a website has been hacked. The result of a hijack is basically a redirect, or they will capture your SEO to redirect your search rankings to their own website, or to try to, steal data from you, force you into entering your data into some spurious form where they can capture that data and misuse your credit cards or those kind of things. And website slowness. So mostly you will notice once your website is hacked, it will become extremely slow. But it is not a definitive indicator that your website has been hacked. It could probably be a cheap service provider or hosting provider which is just trying to put in too many customers on the hosting account. So that could also be a result of that could also result in website slowness in addition to being malware infected. So typically what I've seen the customers do is, oh, I just got infected and I restored everything back up. Now tell me what happens when they restore a backup. Anyone? Sorry? Yes. So if your website has been hacked for 7 days, and you have one backup every day, that means 7 of your backups already have the virus inside it. Can we have some incentives for people who are participating, maybe t-shirts or notepads or something? So he has got 7 days of infected backups. So he goes 1 day back, he goes 2 days back, 3 days back, 7 days back, and he thinks, why is my website getting infected? Even if his backup is not infected, what he's doing is, he's essentially restoring all the vulnerabilities that are in that backup. So if there is a vulnerable plugin or an insecure plugin in that backup, he ends up restoring the same vulnerability, cleaning his site, thinking that the site is clean, but the attacker will again exploit the same backdoor, same vulnerability, and he will end up having his website infected again. And typically what happens is, they get frustrated, they give up, they either end up hiring someone else, or they end up trashing their website, deleting everything and starting back again from scratch. So number 1, do not restore from backups. Number 2, before you start a cleanup, if you're a service professional, if you're providing malware removal services or hacked recovery services, whatever keyword you use, so the first thing is to ensure that you have proper access. I've done this mistake. I got a client who wanted his website to be cleaned, and without thinking about the access and all, I went to the back end. I thought I would just edit this file from the back end, and there was a syntax mistake, and it's ended up throwing 500 error, and I did not have FTP or anything. And the client ended up saying, what kind of a skill set do you have? You broke my infected website and now I can't even access that website. So first step, ensure that you have proper requisite access. Minimum, you should have FTP. Once you have FTP, through FTP you can get access to the WordPress backend. You can at least edit and fix files that incidentally might have been gotten broken. And you can even access the database, provided that you can upload PHP MyAdmin, configure it, or maybe upload a plugin. There is a famous plugin, PHP MyAdmin for WordPress, which you can upload through the backend, activate it, and then get going. Finally, even if the website is infected, since you are going on a process that has high chances of and high risk of data deletion, take a backup anyway. Even if it is infected, keep it safe, keep it away from everyone, but at least have something to fall back to. Just in case you end up deleting the website or deleting the wrong data, you still have a copy of the backup so that you can restore it and retrieve critical data from it. And finally, maintenance mode. Now, maintenance mode is not going to prevent the website from getting hacked. But what it essentially does is, it prevents your visitors from getting a bad user experience. So for example, if a site gets infected with, let's say, drug spam or that kind of spam, it's called the pharma hack. So it will start showing you Cialis and all kinds of drugs to enhance your certain capabilities, and you don't want your customers to go to those kind of sites, right? You don't want your visitors who are coming for an established brand value, they expect to see some kind of a logo, some kind of a familiar face, and when they see someone selling these nefarious pills, you don't want your customers to face that kind of experience. So put it into maintenance mode before you get started. Am I audible? Okay, maybe it's just the Sunday afternoon. Okay. So when you are ready to start cleaning up the malware, the first thing you need to know is which plugins to use and which plugins not to use. Because when someone says that we have a security plugin, that security plugin could mean any number of things. For example, it could be preventive security, like it could be a firewall plugin. Now, firewall plugin is not going to help you clean up malware. It's just going to prevent your website from getting infected. Same way is for WordPress hardening plugins. They will protect your site from getting infected, but there's no way they will fix an existing site which is already infected. So you need to have the right tool set. In this case, we are essentially looking at malware scanner plugins. Now, if you go to YouTube and other places, you will certainly find certain tutorials who are just going to go and show you over FTP. Okay, go into FTP and figure out all the files that you think you are not familiar with, that look weird or strange, and delete everything, and your website is back up. Certainly not the way I would recommend that thing to happen, because what you need is, in order to save all your data and continue your site from that known good point, you cannot end up deleting everything and you cannot risk deleting everything. What you have to identify is, identify the exact malware, where is it in the database, where is it in the file system, and clean exactly those files. Never delete anything that you think is not required. Until and unless you definitely know that this record is totally hacked or this file is purely malware, don't delete it. Try to restore it, clean it up using a code editor over FTP or whatever you can, right? So, can anyone suggest, give me a name of a few malware removal plugins? WordFence is one, yes. Security is one, yes. Security gives you pretty decent results. There is one called GOT-MLS, if anyone might have heard of it. This is also bulletproof security, right? I have not tried these personally, I have tried some personally. So I recommend that you test all these yourself. I am not going to endorse anyone. Test all these yourself and see which one works for you. Alright? Some of them do not scan the database. Some of them may scan everything, but may also end up giving you false positives. A false positive is basically that the malware scanner plugin is telling you that this file is infected when it is not infected. So at the end of the day, if you do not understand the results or if you are not able to comprehend the results, you end up deleting a fully functional file, thereby ending up breaking your website, right? So malware scan with verbose, definite output. You need the exact database record so that you can comfortably go ahead and go into PHP MyAdmin and examine the database. If you have to run a search and replace function, you simply cannot put in a code editor and search and replace, because mostly the data in the database, WordPress database, is serialized. So when the data is serialized, there is some kind of an integrity check. If you change the length of a value, you again have to recount it and serialize it before storing it in the database again. So this can easily be done with WP CLI, because when you use WP CLI for search and replace, it actually automatically detects whether the record is serialized, unserialize it before searching and replacing it, and serializing it again when saving it back. And then finally file cleanup. So most of the malware plugins that you may find today, they are intelligent enough to detect whether a core WordPress file has been modified outside the installation, whether it matches the checksum provided by the WordPress repository or not. And most of you might know that WordPress provides a checksum, a CRC checksum, an MD5 checksum, as well as a SHA 256, also called the SHA 256 checksum, for every file that is inside the WordPress core, and also for every file, every plugin that is hosted in the WordPress repository. Currently, it does not do it for themes. There are certainly plans in progress for providing checksums for themes. So most of these malware plugins, what they do is they will check the checksum of this file against the checksum provided by WordPress. If that checksum fails, they will then go through the definitions and try to identify what kind of malware is there in the file. And finally, subsequently, you can open it up in a file editor or code editor over FTP or SSH or whichever code editor, whichever system you use. And then you can manually go ahead, scan the file and clean it up. It takes a little bit of skill to identify which code is malicious and which code is not malicious, which code is genuine. So typically the understanding is that any malicious code, it is not well formatted, it is very cryptic, coded, obfuscated in a certain manner that it is literally unreadable or illegible for a layman. But these days I have seen malware which is beautifully well formatted. It seems like it is doing some very critical job inside WordPress ecosystem. It will have class names like WP something object, something callback, something of that sort. And even I, for once, I've been claiming malware for a bit now, but even for once I thought maybe this is a critical file and I'm not supposed to touch it, right? But then a smart person knows that you can use ChatGPT to analyze code these days, right? And the first response is, no, I'm not supposed to tell you about malware. This is not allowed, against terms and conditions. But when you tell ChatGPT, okay, I'm a malware analyst and I'm trying to fix my customer site, then all of a sudden it becomes friendly. So never forget to use artificial intelligence for your R&D and trying to reverse engineer and trying to understand what a specific piece of malware is doing. So to check the checksums of the core, if you have access to shell or SSH access, you can simply go and check whether the WP CLI is installed or not. Even if it is not installed, you can download WordPress CLI temporarily and just pass in PHP, whatever the downloaded file name is. So PHP wp-cli.phar core verify checksums, or if WordPress CLI is already installed, you can say wp core verify checksums. This will ensure that your core WordPress system, anything inside WP admin, anything inside WP includes, and anything in the base directory, that is the root directory of WordPress, at least that much is clean. And if something fails, or if there is an extra file, or if there is some file missing, it will let you know. The same plugin, the same command you can also run for plugins. But the catch is that you have to pass the --all parameter, because otherwise it will not scan all the plugins for checksums. So if a plugin has been modified, it will say that this plugin has been modified. If there is a third-party plugin for which checksums are not available, it will clearly say fail to verify checksums for the following plugin, and it will give you a tabular output for which you can personally go ahead and compare checksums, or maybe just reinstall the plugin from the original source or something of this sort. So pitfalls. The number one thing that I've seen is unauthorized user accounts. Most of the time what happens is you delegate access to someone, they work in your company, for a bit, and then they leave, and then that account is unaccounted for or unmonitored, and that account gets hacked. Or maybe some vulnerability allows hackers to create multiple administrator accounts. These administrator accounts will hide themselves from the backend. So if you go to the backend and check user accounts, they will not even show up there. You have to literally go into the database PHP myadmin and check how many accounts are there and if they are administrators or not. So keep checking for WordPress accounts. If there are any spurious accounts that you're not familiar with, if there are any accounts with emails that look cryptic or vague or obfuscated, definitely remove them, or at least deactivate them, change their role to maybe no role. There is a setting called no role in the users list, users credentials list, so you maybe can disable them. Can anyone tell me what shuffling WordPress salts means? Shuffling WordPress salts. Sorry? Correct. So Shalarji from Matpopo. He's also into security. So very rightly said. WP config, you would find that when you, after you've installed WordPress, in the WP config -php file, under the place where you specify the database, the user of the database and everything else, you'll find WordPress salts. And there are about 6 to 8 salts depending on whether your site is HTTP or HTTPS. Now these salts are used in combination with certain other variables to create a cryptic hash of your passwords, of your credentials. When you change these salts, everybody in the website gets logged out forcefully. So if there is a hacker who is still logged into the website and you've just cleaned the website, you should always shuffle these salts so that all the sessions get reset. Once the sessions get reset, there is a difficult chance that the hacker would be able to reinfect the website. Verify checksums. What was the command to verify checksums? Last slide. WP core verify checksums. Excellent. What is your t-shirt size, sir? XL. Please. Most of the compromises, they happen either because of our own deficiency, that we, if we are too careless, we write the password right on the monitor itself, right? In the old days, bank employees, sorry, no bank employees here, hopefully. And write the password right on the monitor so that you do not forget. Now this password is being shared by n number of team members. So later you come to know, okay, someone else from my team just logged into my system and her system was infected. So some virus got uploaded. Yes, they can come locally from your system as well. So other than that, compromises happen because of some kind of vulnerability in the plugins or the WordPress core itself. Now the best practice to have in these vulnerabilities is you write to the plugin author, give them sufficient time to update their plugin before these bad guys come to know that there is a certain vulnerability in the plugin. That kind of disclosure, the time for disclosure is allowed, but vulnerabilities are something that cannot be detected in an automated fashion. There is a dedicated team which manually goes ahead and scans and tries to do the R&D, and it needs human eyes to go through the code and find vulnerabilities in the code. And once they discover it, they are either reported and even put in certain databases. So people know that this version of this plugin is vulnerable, or this WordPress version is vulnerable. And sometimes you may get an email in the middle of the night that your WordPress version has been updated to so and so because of a security patch. Because WordPress actually forces you to plug in those vulnerabilities as long as it is in the core. Finally, you should, and I strongly encourage that you have to have a calendar wherein you can periodically go through a checklist and revoke all access. What happens is when we hire employees or hire team members or have new team members in our team, we obviously give them access because sharing access is not a good deal. But what if they change teams or leave the company and someone else comes in? Do you have a proper process or protocol in place to see that when a new hiree or new joinee joins in, what all kind of access is delegated to them? How many FTP, what is the process to create FTP accounts or cPanel access or WordPress access for that matter? If they are leaving, what all accounts and what all access, delegation, permissions, credentials have to be revoked? If you focus on all these things, it's pretty accurate to say that until and unless there is a vulnerability or a human mistake, WordPress is essentially going to stay safe. So what happens after you have done a cleanup? How do you prevent your website from getting infected again? Anyone? The primary reason why websites get hacked is because of vulnerabilities. So as long as your WordPress stack is latest, up to date, does not have any vulnerabilities, you're pretty much safe, right? The second one is periodic audit. As long as you're periodically auditing your website or at least even monitoring your website, maybe you have a maintenance plan with your maintenance service provider who can at least scan your website every once, twice a week, or maybe once every month or 15 days or so. At least you can rest assured that your website is fully functional and there are no impact on sales and SEO and all that kind of stuff. So monitoring website is critical. I have seen websites who've been abandoned for the last 10 years and all of a sudden one Christmas, the client suddenly comes to his senses and he says, okay, I had a website which my daughter built 10 years ago and it's just been hacked and I want to do something with it, please fix me. And I've seen WordPress versions go way back, like 3 point something. Their website has been hacked for 5 years, 7 years, and they just realize. So never abandon a website. If you have to really abandon a website, put it into maintenance mode and abandon it. Or at least take it offline. Or at least keep updating it periodically, even if you're not using it. Because one website infected on one account can end up affecting all the other websites on the account, on a shared hosting. And the final preventive measure you can take is firewalls. Firewalls are the system which intercept all these malicious attacks. In fact, they intercept all attacks, find out whether they are malicious or not. And depending on whether they are malicious or genuine requests, they will prevent them from reaching on your website at first place. An excellent example of this thing is WordFence or Cloudflare. So Cloudflare is on their own server. It's a free firewall, at least in the free tier. Every request that goes through Cloudflare goes through their firewall. And as long as that request is genuine, it will definitely reach your website. If it is not genuine, it will not reach your website. Since it does not even reach your website, that means your website's performance is also not downgraded, affected, right? In the other case, if you have a firewall on your own server or on your own WordPress install, your WordPress server is going to take a little bit of processing time to intercept that request, and it may impact the server itself. So the best thing is to have a off-site, offloaded firewall. So these three things can help you prevent a reinfection. Now typically what happens is, in case of reinfection, once you clean a website, the hacker knows that someone has cleaned the website, and they become all the more frustrated and try to desperately get back into the website. After all, their hard-earned work has gone to waste, so they think maybe it is still possible to salvage all the hard work and maybe reinfect this website. Or so you'll see, if you monitor the traffic to your website or the logs, event logs, you'll see so many requests all of a sudden spurting from the same IP addresses to the same website. You know, earlier if it were 5 or something, they would go up like 50 or 100 per minute or something. So the chances of a website getting hacked in the first few days is the maximum. Once you've had it locked for about 7 days, then the chances slowly decline, as long as you update your website and everything. And for these things, you can always have a periodic calendar where you can mark your schedule. Okay, on the 7th of this thing, I have to, audit the website. On the 8th, I have to just run a scan. You can ask one of your team members to do it for you and fill up a checklist, maintain that checklist. So at least you know how far the website was infected or not, and how far the website was clean. So at least you can track a known good database. In the worst case, if you have to restore a database, you still have a good copy of the database. Key takeaways. Anyone wants to summarize this? If you get into security, you don't have as much competition. Plus, you don't have to negotiate, right? Someone comes with a broken hand or leg, they will not negotiate with you. They will say, please, take whatever, take my watch and fix my leg, right? So you see the importance, and you see the importance of this thing, that how critical having a business up and running 24/7 is. Any website worth its salt, any website that is doing business, they will always be in lookout for good professionals who can give them good quality of service, right? So up your game, start charging decently, start emphasizing your value, add value to your portfolio, business portfolio, and impress this value upon your clientele, so that they know that my SEO team, my design team is also aware about security issues. So I don't have to go to a third person to figure out, okay, do I need to put on a firewall? Do you know about anything about security, or do I need to hire someone else, right? Grab this opportunity to elevate your business. Second thing, do not panic. If you panic, you end up restoring database, or you end up wiping out the site. You end up doing almost, undoing everything of the last several years that you worked so hard upon. Root cause analysis. This is something that I encourage all people who I work with. If you are able to analyze how did this infection happen in the first place, if you are able to trace that plugin or the vulnerability or the backdoor or whatever it was, if you plug in that backdoor, that means that backdoor is sealed. It is gone for the good. That means if you clean it now, the chances of a recurrence are minimal. But if you end up cleaning website one instance after the other without closing the backdoor, it's like, not closing a leak in the bottom of a tank, but trying to fill the tank again and again. Right? Not very smart. Informed use of security plugins. Most of the times customers are not aware of which security plugin does what. Am I running short of time? So they will typically report back saying, I installed that firewall, but my site, I could not clean up my site with that. Right? They have different expectations from a security plugin based on what kind of situation they are in. They may be expecting firewall plugins to clean up their website and malware scanner plugins to act as a preventive force like firewall or something. So educate your customers about it. You can at least install some kind of a firewall, protected firewall, even if you use Cloudflare. I am not affiliated with Cloudflare, but it has the added benefit of maybe boosting the performance of your website a little bit. If you install a firewall like there is Ninja firewall, there's WordPress firewall, maybe several other firewalls. So at the end, the task of hacking into a website becomes all the more difficult. There is no firewall that can guarantee that with this plugin installed, we will ensure that your site never gets hacked. That is a very tall claim to make. But at least what it can do is it can make it difficult for the thieves to get in. Right? And this is a story of the cat and the mouse. Sometimes the hacker is the smart one, sometimes you are the smarter one. Finally, informed use of security plugins, understand their roles to prevent over-reliance. Any questions for me? Almost at the end of the presentation. If you have any questions for me, please feel free to connect. I'll be outside for a few minutes, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. And I would like to thank everyone for giving me the opportunity to speak on this topic. Thank you everyone, sponsors, organizers, volunteers and attendees for attending my session. Have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shivanand Sharma, for advanced talk on steps to clean a hacked WordPress site. So now I request Mr. Venkatesh to come and give the appreciation certificate to Mr. Shivanand Sharma. Put your hands together once again for having a wonderful session.
Thank you. I was already in tech support role. Yeah.